Awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Grant Committee presentations. Today is Tuesday, September 27th, and we have the HATS protocol team with us who have posted a community grant in the forum a while back. And we have Spencer, David, and soon Nick will be joining us, hopefully, as well. So it's the entire team that is there. And they're going to be presenting their grant, and we're going to have the opportunity to ask some questions and get into some of the details of the grant. So Spencer, David, if you want to take it off, maybe start off with a sort of 5-minute overview of what the HATS protocol is all about, and then maybe go into your grant proposal and what exactly it is that you're proposing.
Sounds great. Hi, everybody. David here. Nick is stuck in the verifier, so he apologizes. He's trying to get through that. For some reason, there's a glitch there, but he'll join in a second. But to start off with a high-level overview, I thought it might be helpful to share my screen and do kind of a quick deck. So let me just do that. All right, here we are. So HATS protocol is a tool to help DAOs get things done and to empower contributors with the autonomy that they need to do great work.
We're looking at Discord, not the slides.
Why is that? Wow, look at all those screen and the screen and the screen. Let's try this again. Okay, pull this over. What is going on?
So now we're Discord server.
My God, what a mess.
All good, all good. We have time today.
Apologies, folks. I'm having issues with my screen share here. Maybe Spencer, can you share the deck and I'll talk through it?
Yeah, let me pull it up.
You do the screen share.
Is that visible?
It's still loading. Let's see. Yep, there it is. You can go ahead.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you. All right, next slide, Spencer. So we all know DAOs can be amazing. They can be these incredible networked organizations that are able to get things done at the core and really move work forward, but also engage large numbers of contributors around shared leadership and shared decision making. I think we recognize the potential of DAOs, but next slide, the issue is that governance is really hard. Of course, there are lots of different issues in DAOs, but one of the primary issues we see is that the way that we engage those people to make decisions and take actions is not optimal. It's not really allowing us to get things done at the same level of efficiency and effectiveness as we might see in traditional hierarchical structures. But of course, we think there's a better way to structure ourselves and to engage large numbers of people and shared leadership and decision making. And so, next slide. One of the things that we're seeing is that why governance is challenging is that DAOs are either micromanaging down to the level of individual tasks, individual bounties, or they're not really managing much at all. there's this lack of structure in a lot of DAOs that creates this tyranny of structurelessness and causes all sorts of issues and kind of chaotic. And so, next slide. What we're proposing with HAT's protocol is that we need to delegate better. We need to delegate responsibilities to the right level of granularity, rather than having the general delegation where you're delegating decision making to a specific person or a small group kind of into perpetuity and for all different types of decisions. And instead of just managing down to the level of individual one-off tasks, we think roles are the future of DAO governance. And really, we see roles all throughout human history. Every type of human organization has had roles. People have worn different hats to signify their specific role. From a ceremonial headdress to a crown to different types of hats. The phrase "you wear many hats" in an organization, it's true, and we really think it's critical that people have the understanding of what they're responsible for within a DAO, and will wear that hat to signify that they have, they're responsible for a specific role or a set of deliverables. Next slide, Spencer. What I mean by hats is that hats empowers contributors with the autonomy they need to do their work. So we can give contributors the context they need, the information they need, and commitments that they're signing up for, as well as the authorities and permissions, and the associated accountabilities or rewards to do their work. We think these are three key things that contributors need to do great work: context, authorities, and then accountabilities and rewards. And next slide. And this is all encoded in an 1155 NFT, which we are calling a hat. And when that hat is in somebody's wallet, then they will automatically receive the context, the information they need. It'll pair with token gating platforms to give them the various authorities and permissions that they need, whether that's Discord role or GitHub admin, or posting to the DAO's Twitter, or being a multi-sig signer, as well as the associated accountabilities, which could be integrated with staking mechanisms or rewards, like automatically putting the person who is wearing a certain hat into a coordinate circle, for example, encoded in this hat. And those hats, those tokens, are granted and revoked by DAO governance, but you can also bring your own logic and say things like, this hat will be active so long as a certain person votes on X percentage of multi-sig signatures, or does a certain number of contributions, or is active. So you can pair it with whatever kind of logic or integrations you want. Next slide. A hat is just a token, right? It's an 1155 NFT right now. It could be other things, but that means that token gates have two components to them. One is the token, and the other is the gate. And so we're not focused on the gate. Hats integrates with different gates like Collab Guild, Zodiac, Lit Protocol, etc. But Hats is really focused on getting the right token in the right wallets at the right times. A much more nuanced token that can integrate the various context and authorities and accountabilities associated with this specific role. So hats plus these different gates like Collab, Guild, Zodiac, and Lit Protocol would then unlock different sorts of authorities for an individual or even a team who's wearing the hats, because hats can be worn by an individual or a team or even another DAO or another smart contract. So, allowing things like Discord role, wikis and databases, multi-sig signers, post to Twitter, all different kinds of things. Next slide. And ultimately what this means is that contributors will have everything they need to be effective, while the ultimate authority continues to reside with the DAO. I won't get into too much detail, and we can answer questions about this, but hats essentially exist in a hat tree where there is a top level admin hat which we call the top hat, which we imagine the DAO itself will wear, which then is able to revoke and transfer the individual hats underneath it. Otherwise, the hats are non-transferable NFTs. And so the DAO can grant, revoke, transfer, activate, deactivate, or encode with different logic to revoke, transfer, activate, and deactivate different hats, which then will come with it all the sorts of authorities and accountabilities and context an individual or team needs to do their work. So we can get into more details about that. That is the basics of it. Maybe one more slide. This is our team. Just to introduce ourselves, we have Spencer, we have Ninti Nick, and myself, David. Go to the next slide. And I think we can stop there. We are looking you can close out the presentation, Spencer. We are excited to work with Graph Advocates DAO. We are looking to work with a small number of DAOs at this stage to really as partners and help integrate hats into the work that you're doing to solve the specific issues that you have, and looking to kind of co-create and design how hats will evolve from here. So that's kind of the opening. And Spencer, over to you. What would you add? And then we're happy to take questions. Spencer, anything you would add?
No, well, there's a ton more to talk about, but I think we'll leave it there and open up for questions before we get into some of the more details of our grant proposal.
Thank you for the presentation here, David. That was very insightful, and I like how you've summarized what the HATS protocol really is all about. I would like to give a little bit of context here for the audience, especially the DAO member, to understand how the proposal fits in. Now, I've had the opportunity to have a discussion with HATS protocol before, just to get that sort of clarity, and I want to provide that context to you as well. If you look at the entire protocol that the team is building, it's huge, right? I mean, this is an on-chain protocol with smart contracts, etc. And it's not, the grant proposal that they pose to the Graph Advocates DAO is not in support of the general development and implementation of that protocol. That would be way too big for us to support. What the proposal really centers around is the HATS protocol is already advanced enough that they can start developing actual use cases and get feedback from partners that they collaborate with. So they've chosen the Graph Advocates DAO as one of those partners. What we would do, this would be a grant where the DAO would be engaged as well. So this is not a situation where we would say, here is your funding, and tell us when you're done and how great of a job you've done. This is a project where we would actually be actively engaged. We would partner with them. We would work with them. And I think this is a really interesting use case when you think about how the DAO operates today. For those that might not be familiar with it, we have the exact sort of tree structure that the HATS protocol has designed for. We have the DAO at the top level, right? And the DAO votes in DAO House on the on-chain proposals. And if you are a member of the DAO, when you have a voting share and you are in the DAO on DAO House, then as a DAO member, you can choose to join a committee. And right now we have 3 committees, with the 4th being proposed, the governance committee. And the way that it currently works is you go into coordinate, one person has to nominate, another person has to vouch, and then you're in the committee. It's fairly easy to get in a committee. And then underneath the committee, we have teams. And here we have it even more loosely defined. Right now, there is really no definition as to who qualifies to join a team, who can join a team, and who actually is in the team. Sometimes we don't know, right? It is we have over a dozen different teams, but there is no structure as to who can join in and out. We know the association to the respective committees, but beyond that, there is not that much definition. So this proposal, I think, is really beautiful to introduce that sort of structure, to rethink about how we are managing roles that we have, being in the committees and the respective teams. It also allows us to be more disciplined, around who has what kind of responsibilities and authorities. We have a GOC structure, which is the Graph Advocate Style Operating Codes. And these GOCs oftentimes give us the direction as to what the scope and responsibility is. And I think with what we have in front of us as a proposal, I think those two work together really nicely, where you can almost link them in a way where you say you have the responsibility to execute GOC XYZ, right? That's the responsibility of this team, of this committee. So that's just the context I would like to provide. And before I start, maybe I open it up to the rest of the audience for questions. Any questions does anyone have so far before we move on? Okay, so why don't we talk a little bit more, David, Nick, Spencer, about the specifics of the proposal. Now, let's assume we have a high-level understanding of what HEADS protocol does. What exactly would you be looking for from the DAO to partner with in terms of scope? Is that something that you can talk to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So every hat is going to represent either a role with multiple authorities, or it can be as granular as a single authority. And the first question would be starting to map out what are those within the Graph Advocate staff. And one of the reasons that we're so excited to collaborate and partner with you is that you have more structure and more of this already outlined than many of the DAOs that we've talked to. So basically mapping the hats or the tokens to those specific roles and figuring out what are the token gates and the platforms that those token gates are going to connect to, and then who are the right people to put those hat tokens in their wallets, and just to kind of create a high level plan of that would be kind of the first step.
Yeah, love it. And that is something that we have pretty good definition around as to what committees we have, what teams we have. At the team level, it gets a little bit blurry as to who's a member of the team, but we have also a fairly good understanding of what the responsibilities are, at least in broad strokes. I guess then as a next step, we would also then collaborate on defining the rules of how you can wear a hat. What are is it like a multi-sig decision or whatever logic that we want to use? That would be also then a task that we would tackle.
Exactly. So HATS protocol is designed as a primitive where you can bring your own logic, as David said. And the default for any hat is that we set the entity that's able to revoke the hat to the DAO or a multisig. But then over time, we can collaborate to write smart contracts that have embedded logic conditions. So we're pulling some data about some on-chain state, about maybe some contributions that people made or didn't make, and then using that as information to automatically grant and revoke hats. So just to start off, we can do a very manual process where we socially document the conditions under which we might revoke a hat as a form of accountability, and over time can evolve to a more mechanistic or programmatic approach by implementing smart contracts within the hats. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense.
Awesome.
How about user interface? Do you have an established user interface, or is that something that you are in development of? How should we envision from a user experience as a DAO member, where we would set that up, or is that simply at this point, and what you envision for the proposal, that we would just be working with you and you would essentially just do the coding on your end?
So this is a very exciting time for us because this is one of our most common questions from people that we're partnering with right now. Is maybe I can understand it from Etherscan and looking at event logs and token IDs, but the rest of the people in my DAO they really wanna see it in a front end. So we broke ground on some initial designs and we're in the process, but obviously building a front end is a full product process and using some of the funds from this grant, we'll be able to recruit in some especially design talent that between David Spencer and myself, we're not the best designers. We're much better coders than designers. But obviously, like the protocol is live on Osis chain, and we can put it on other chains as needed. So everything is there. What we've been doing is we're really thinking through how do we get to the minimum required front end functionality. If it's developed in something that you're already using, or spinning up something for you custom, that's kind of the place that we'll start, and that'll inform the way that we develop a front end over time. And obviously, as a protocol, if anyone wants to come and build their own front end, they're more than welcome to do that.
Okay. Are there any other question here from anyone else on this? Maybe reactions. Love to hear some reactions.
Yep, I want to ask a question. And can you please talk about working with other projects? Did they give you some kind of feedback or something like that?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yep, sure. Can you please tell us more about working with other project? Did they give you any feedback or other thing on that?
Yeah, sure. So two kind of categories of feedback. One category is, as we already touched on, we need front end to make this just more usable and to make it accessible to everyone in the DAO, so it's inclusive. And the other point of feedback is like where is Hats most useful? Like what are the specific authorities, platforms that people need for context that we can plug into? So obviously Discord is a major one, token gated roles, and just really transferring the source of truth of role data from Discord as a centralized platform into an on-chain native format that is really owned by the DAO. And then secondly, we hear often that people want to be able, this is just kind of funny one to me, but people want to be able to have a token gated Twitter. It's like one of the most common requests that we have. And also I'll touch on token hats gated multisigs. We have a group, a DAO community that we're working with now that's going to try to allocate more funds to smaller groups of people and have them run more autonomously by using hats to token gate multi-sig signing authority. And that seems to be like a common request. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yep, thanks.
So can you tell us a little bit about the level of access that you would need to DAO systems, such as Twitter, Discord, forum, etc.? Do you need I would envision you would need full access to all of that, right?
We shouldn't need access. We are going to need what HATS protocol is going to generate tokens via votes from, via interactions from your DAO. So your DAO will have the top hat and the admin authority and ability to create and mint other tokens. We can help you set up those transactions and track the token IDs and things like that. But ultimately, like, the fundamental philosophical principle here is maintaining that the DAO has the executive authority to and ability to delegate the roles. Someone is going to have to plug those token IDs into various systems. So whether that's one of the bots that you have here, whoever's managing that, or if you want to use Guild or Collabland, something that is a token gate, someone has to go into that platform and connect the hat token ID to the token gate for a particular role or authority. But we can show you how to do that without actually having access ourselves, depending on how you want to approach it.
Okay, interesting. Any other questions?
This is not a question, more so of a comment. I just want to say that I for one, I'm super excited about this. If and when this proposal goes through, I'm sure that there will be tons of questions once we start utilizing HATS protocol, the different aspects of HATS and delegating these HATS or roles to each other. And this, I just feel like governance tools and DAO tooling in general is just super a need. It's a necessity, especially having been engaged in so many different DAO activities, and it just kind of starts getting a little bit chaotic, especially once the DAO starts growing. And I'm excited for this. I really want to thank the three of you for joining us and presenting this to us.
So to give a bit of a recap as to where we are in the process for this grant. So I think this was a good presentation. The feedback here from everyone is very positive. I'm looking at the forum right now. There's unanimous support from the community as well as from the grant committee at this point. So I think there's a lot of excitement that I'm seeing. The component where the DAO itself needs to partner is something that would need to be introduced, I think, to the ops committee, because they would probably be the resource that provides folks that you would work together with. So I will take the lead in making sure that there is awareness within the ops committee about that, and also to get feedback there. And then it is all about, where we need to step up as a DAO and define what we want, right? So where do we want to take it to, which systems and platforms? And we have some areas very well defined, other areas not so much. And this is also, I think, for the DAO a big step to change the way that we assign roles, right? So it fundamentally changes that. So there's some internal discussions that I will take lead for and be sort of the advocate and champion on behalf of this proposal. So are there any other questions at this point in time? Otherwise, I would just lay out what the next steps would be in the process.
I'll just jump in here to respond to Este's point too. This is so early, and DAOs are so early, and the fact that you all have such a well-functioning, well-articulated DAO at this point is rare. So it's an honor to work with you and push this frontier of coordination tooling together. We are only working with a very small number of DAOs right now because we want to establish an intimate relationship with you so that we can build something that really works for you and meets your needs, and that can inform this whole the whole Web3 ecosystem as to what best practices could be. So I'm really excited to be into pushing on the frontier together, and I'm also really humble in the way that we're going to collaborate and learn from one another and kind of like deeply solve this problem together. So I just want to acknowledge your kind words and thoughts on this. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and jam on this together. So thank you.
Yeah, that respect is mutual. So I said it in the last presentation last week that for our community grants, especially when you have folks come in that are not necessarily graph native to the community, right? They're fairly new. That reputation is such a big factor. Reputation gains trust, and then trust gives you confidence that you make the right decision in supporting a grant. And with Spencer, we have somebody on the team who's been actually very close to the DAO early on, and he was with us all the way as we summoned the DAO. He was a strong partner as we set up our DAO on DAO House and helped us defining the right parameters, etc. So I know Spencer, and I know that Spencer knows the Graph Advocates DAO very well. He was part of the creation of it, so that gives me a high level of confidence and trust in this team, and also excitement. That because I think innovation is something that I'm always getting excited about, and I see innovation here, and to do so in a meaningful way. I think it's a nice progressive step for us. It's nothing that I feel is too big to handle. It's a step in the right direction. We just need to step up for this grant. That is one thing that is important to consider. This is not a grant where we would be hands off. We would be hands on this. Cool. Okay, so next steps. I will do more socializing of the proposal with folks that are not part of the grant committee, and especially in the ops committee, to ensure that we've got broad consensus there and full understanding, and also capacity necessary to support this grant. And that might take a week or two until we get to a point where then the grant committee, will be able to vote on it. So the next step would be a vote in the forum. A couple of committee members already have cast their vote, but once we switch it to the process where we require all committee members to vote, then that'll go on for about a week, and then we have a decision whether the grant committee wants to recommend it. After that, it goes on DAO House. So on DAO House, that'll be the on-chain vote, where we would then have the official voting, and then obviously the funding would then be executed on-chain for that. During that time, there might be a few more questions. So Spencer and I, we have a direct line of communication. So I will communicate via Spencer in case there are any more questions or things that come up throughout the process. Does that provide clarity? I think from a scope perspective, I understand it. Is there anything that anybody would like to raise as a question regarding scope or deliverables on this? Very good. And I want to thank you, David, Nick, and Spencer for coming here today, and everyone else for joining and listening in. This is an exciting one. This is really exciting. This is something where the DAO can show how we are innovating in the Web3 space. And I hope we're going to have broad support for that. Very good.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you,
Thank you.
Oliver and Esty.